Hello everyone, welcome back to your weekend drawing exercise. So this week we are going to be drawing boxes, whether it's boxes of matches or box shaped objects like this here camera battery or this here scalpel box, or you can get a bit more adventurous and do something like your TV remote, which obviously has a bit more going on, and even something like this hard drive, which is essentially a box, just has a rounded corners. Okay, so before you kick off, don't forget what you need is a nice sharp pencil to start with, and again I use the scalpel to try and give it a chisel edge. But up to you. Okay, and away we go. Before you get into drawing the actual boxes that you find to draw, I would just warm up a bit like we did last week. You might want to just start off by just drawing some lines and just kind of get back into the feel of the pencil, feel of the paper under the pencil. Just warm up, draw some lines, and then you might want to start doing this kind of thing where you're drawing lines, horizontal and vertical lines that intersect and cross over at the corners. Something like so. So you're drawing a square, a rectangle, doesn't really matter. And then maybe what you might want to do is draw some horizontal vertical lines that cross over, and then some diagonals, another horizontal, another vertical, another diagonal, and there you go, you've drawn your first box before you've even really started. And you could even start to maybe hatch it a little bit, put some light and shade into it. But again, this is just really to warm you up. Okay, so do a few minutes of that before you, as I say, get into the main exercise. Alright, and then you're ready to hopefully start proper. And what should we start with? We'll start with a match. No, I'll start with the batteries. It's nice and compact, I can hold it in my hand. So the important thing is to have a good look at it first of all. Put it down in front of you, decide what sort of position you're going to go for. By putting it on the desk in front of you, you're pretty much naturally drawing what we call a 3/4 view. And you can turn it around to show 1, 2, 3 faces. Okay, so we're getting 3/4 view with 3 faces. Okay, and then we can start to draw. And pretty much what we want to do is try and get the proportions right more than anything. So, like so. So this battery is about, I don't know, 3 times its height in terms of width, and maybe twice as long as it is wide, something like so. Okay, so do it a few times and do it from different angles, and just until you're happy that you can kind of get the proportions right more than anything else. Okay, and as I say, don't worry about your lines crossing over at the ends. In fact, I kind of think that's a good thing. It's a sign of an architect or a designer, someone who crosses over the lines at the edge. So let's just tilt it around again to maybe a slightly different viewpoint. And of course it's a 3-dimensional object, that means that we're basically drawing it in perspective. Okay, so these lines are actually converging. That means they're meeting at some imaginary point on the horizon. Okay. And notice that, you know, as you orientate it away or to or from you, you're seeing more of one face and less of another. So I'm seeing quite a lot of the front face there, but the side not so much. Okay. Now I might want to start to indicate a little bit of tonality. So, you know, this side away from the light is darker. And obviously we could start to think about shadows and things, but I'm going to leave that out for now. We'll just concentrate purely on line and maybe a little bit of hatch to indicate tonality. Okay. So what you're really after, as I say, is getting the proportions of the box right. Let's try the Matchbox now. Give yourself plenty of room. Don't be afraid to go onto a new sheet. The interesting thing is, now that I look at it, is that this here Matchbox, although it's a larger object, proportionally is actually not so dissimilar to the battery that I was just drawing there. As you can see, it's quite shallow, shall we say, in its height. And about twice as long as it is wide. A bit more difficult to see the tonality because of the packaging essentially, and the strip along the side of the Matchbox. But in some ways, that's why you're better off with this, because it's a plain object basically, so you can see the contrast, the change in light and shadow more easily. But again, the same thing. It's brighter on the left-hand side as I'm looking at it. And so, you know, if you want to firm an object onto a surface, you might want to go around the object once you've drawn the basic form of it and give it a little bit of a shadow line around. Okay. Switch this around, draw a slightly different point of view. Don't be afraid to turn your sketchbook to suit whatever suits your way of working. Okay, and you can draw it at different sizes, different scales if you like. So now seeing less of the front. Okay. Let's try another one. Shall we try the scalpel box, just because it's slightly different proportions. So it's a bit deeper than the previous two, and it's also, actually it's quite sort of coffin proportioned when you look at it. Okay, so it's about 3 times as long as it is wide. Something else there. I'm not getting into the detail too much at this stage. This box obviously does split into half essentially because it's hinged, but I might just want to pick up on a little bit of that, just so we can show that. So the halfway point is easy enough. The halfway point here, where it's kind of notched in, something like so. And it has this little extrusion running around, so you might want to sort of indicate something like that. Okay. Something like so. Now, with this box, it's a little bit more obvious that it's got this curvature on the edge. I mean, slightly radiused. In fact, pretty much everything in real life has some sort of, we call it a fillet or a chamfer, depending. It's you know, no such thing as a true perfectly sharp edge. Everything in real life always is somewhat softened. So we might want to start thinking about that when we come to sort of firming our line up. We could indicate a little bit of highlight and a little bit of radius on the corners. Maybe, just like so. But as I say, I'm really much more interested in you being able to get the proportions right. Actually, when I look at this in a bit more detail, it's got some sort of embossing going on the top here. Something just in from the edge. So I'm just going to indicate that pretty lightly. It goes to the halfway point. It's something like so. So again, you know, do it from a few different vantage points. Just orientate it. In fact, you know, you could turn it on its side. This one's going to open up. Be careful. But again, just really get to grips with getting the proportions right. If I do this, I can really see it's actually much fatter at the end than I'm giving it credit for, and it's opening slightly. So. And I've got a fair amount of, I've got quite a sharp perspective on it now. Off somewhere over there. So, you know. So try that. Try a few different viewpoints. If you do find a box that opens like this one and make life more interesting, then fine. Let's go with it. So keep your lines loose and fluid. Don't do any of the old, you know, lots and lots of little lines. We just want to start getting away from that now. Okay. So you might want to, as I say, start indicating a little bit of tonality and a little bit of the curvature, radius, soft edge, a bit of a shadow line perhaps, in fact we've got that indentation there. The fact that it's obviously darker on one side than the other, and in the interior, and this is obviously pretty dark. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. You get the idea, hopefully. Look forward to seeing some boxes next week. Alright, just to end, a couple of books I think I mentioned previously. This one's quite a good one, Drawing Buildings and Cities by Matthew Brem. Drawing buildings and cities in 15 minutes, as a matter of fact. A super fast drawing technique anyone can learn. Obviously we haven't got into drawing buildings and cities just yet, but we will be. And this one by Ching, Francis K. Ching, is a classic, as I've mentioned. Architectural graphics. This is one of several that he's famous for, so both of those are really good books to have in your collection. Alright, have a good weekend, see you next week.